Hello. Um, First of all, let me start with congratulations to you for the initiative of setting up or creating this model code for the Latin American and Caribbean countries. This is a very interesting and nice initiative, and I'm sure that it will be successful and very impactful. We have some experience in setting up standards and codes in Europe, and this is precisely the objective of my presentation today, is to show you and to share with you the experience that we gained with the setting up of the Eurocodes, the European standards, the European design codes for buildings and civil engineering structures, and our experience also in its implementation and further development. The title of the presentation is here, the Unified European Design Codes for Europe, and much more. Much more. I will come to this point of the much more in a minute. During my presentation, you see this much more. It's what is creating about these initiatives. They are very powerful and they can have lateral effects, positive lateral effects in other things. Before coming to the presentation, I'd like to give you some hints on my experience, on my CV, and my relation with the Eurocodes. I have been the head of unit Safety and Security of Buildings at the Joint Research Center of the European Commission for more than 10 years. I have been in commission for more than 35 years. I have always been related to the Eurocodes, and my career was always related to Eurocodes. I have started the coordination of the GRC Eurocodes project for more than 10 years. It was a long time ago, but I did it. After I have to give up because I undertook managerial responsibilities. I have been also a research officer at the National Laboratory for Civil Engineering in Lisbon. I have started my career there at the University of Lisbon also. And presently I'm retired from the commission, but I'm still serving as an expert supporting the French government in the assessment of the research institutions and universities in Paris and in France. I am also a member of the National Laboratory for Civil Engineering Advisory Panel, and I have other activities which are not relevant for here. Let me go to the contents of my presentation, some points to structure it a little bit. I will tell you what are the Eurocodes effectively, what is the European legislation and standardization or ecosystem, how did you develop the Eurocodes and what was the timeline, work and timeline? Then I will go to the second generation of the Eurocodes in general and specifically to the Eurocode 8 seismic design, which in my opinion is very relevant for your project, for your model code. And finally, I will talk about research and innovation. You see, as I told you a few minutes ago, of a standard of a code is a lot of work, but afterwards you have some objective, we deliver something, we have a milestone. After that, everything goes much faster and it's easier. Research was one of the lateral positive effects of the development of the European standards. We create a committee for research and innovation, and it is there with a strong pace. What are the Eurocodes? The Eurocodes were born as a political vision, as a policy goal, and in fact they were the legislation at that moment, the documents you can read, the Eurocodes to establish a set of common technical rules for the design of buildings and civil engineering structures, which will ultimately replace the differing rules of the various member states. You see, what was the objective was to remove the obstacles to trade and to get some harmonization in Europe. But what are effectively the Eurocodes? There are 10 standards. This is essentially what they are, 10 codes, I would say. They were developed by the CEN. CEN is the European Committee for Standardization, and the name comes from the French Comité Européen de Normalisation. And these standards were developed upon request of the European Commission. I would like to give you some numbers because these numbers give us an idea of the impact of the Eurocodes in Europe. There are 34 CEN countries involved. The European Union countries because the Eurocodes also apply the European standards. Normally, they apply also to the EFTA countries. There is 1.88 annual value of the European construction market, which is 6-7% of the European GDP, gross domestic product, and there are, this is very important for us, I mean, 500,000 engineers involved in this, involved with the Eurocodes. If you go to be more structured, here you have the 10 standards. The first one is the structural safety, basis of design, where you deal with structural safety, serviceability, and durability of structures. We go to the second level, which is the actions of structures. The loading is here in year 1991. After you have a set of material codes, and it goes from the concrete, steel, concrete, composite structures, timber, masonry, and aluminium. These are the standards for design and detailing of these materials. And finally, you have the two codes. One is for geotechnical design, which is 1997, and the Eurocodes for seismic design, this one, which is 1998. This completes the set of these 10 standards, the Eurocodes, and yes, that's all. Let me show you a little bit of this problem of applying a code in a vast region. I mean, how can you apply the Eurocodes in Europe? In the north, you have snow, too much snow. In the south, it's very hot, the temperature is very high. Africa is there. I mean, there are winds in one part strong, the others not too much. I mean, how can you cope with this diversity in terms of geography, in terms of climate, and in terms of geological conditions? You see, in the north, no, there are not too much earthquakes. In the south, there are. Greece, Italy, Portugal, you see, there are earthquakes a lot. And how you cope with difference of seismicity in the different parts of Europe. The solution was very intelligent, very clever, in my opinion. It was to create these nationally determined parameters, which can adjust the conditions of the countries of the region. And we put all this together in the so-called national annex. Each country has a national annex for the Eurocode, for each code, and it goes like this. Another important aspect is that the Eurocodes, they have a modular structure. You have seen these 10 standards very, very well separated. This modularity gives the possibility to the installation or to the adoption of the Eurocodes progressively. This is a very important thing also, the possibility of implementing even parts of the standard very progressively. We have the standard at the same time, in the same moment, published, adopted everywhere in the. You see here you have the standard at national level. What do you have? You have a central part, this number 2 here, which is really the European CEN standard. This is equal for all countries. There is no differences. Clearly, it should be translated to the language of the country, but the contents of this part 2, they are the same for all European countries, for all member states, and the country or the member state has the possibility to add, when publishing it nationally, they have a national forward, and they have here the national annex, which is the number 3 here, is the national annex, which contains all the national determined parameters, NDPs, as it is there, some information on structures which are not considered at the European level. And this is called no contradictory complementary information. You see, no contradictory to the Eurocodes, to the main standard, and supplementary and complementary, complementary. They should be complementary. You should not be legislating or about the same thing or putting a standard about the same thing. Here you have a case of the UK national next, in this case for Eurocode 2, part 2, with the national forward, and afterwards here with the national next, you see, and the right hand side of the picture of this slide you have a realization, I would say, of the Eurocode's the UK national industry. They are creating a concise Eurocode 2, but pay attention, this is not a standard. The standard is what is in the left side. This is to help the community to design, to be more concise, and perhaps to do design more rapidly for conventional and very simple structures. You can do it in a concise way. You have a book that you can, but this gives us the idea that it's possible afterwards, the industry, the academy, etc., to create the conditions for the application, for the training. Arising from the Eurocodes, uniform levels of safety in Europe. This is very important. Common criteria, design criteria and methods. You see, for design, for fire, for earthquake, durability and economy, and they create a basis for fair competition between the different firms in Europe in the construction market. We could really be more specific here. Competitiveness between whom? Between engineering firms, contractors, designers, manufacturers, product manufacturers in their worldwide activities also, not only in Europe. And another important thing is that because they provide the common basis for research and development. You see, nowadays a project in Europe, if it is in this area, they have a reference to the Eurocodes. They say this will have an impact in the Eurocodes in the second generation or even in the third generation. I mean, we have to have a vision always to put the results of the research in the code practice in a short or even long term. Let me go to the second point of my presentation, and this is about the European legislation and standardization system. Here you have the representation of the ecosystem for legislation and standardization. It's a bit complex, but I will try to simplify it. Let us start with the legislation, the part of authority. You see, you have the European Commission on the top, the European government, and you have in the left, in the column, you have the European member states there. They get together and they sit in the standing committee for construction, and they decide what are the objectives of the legislation, what kind of legislation is needed at the European level, and after they coordinate with the countries how to implement this legislation at the national level. This is the authority, is the legislation part, and afterwards comes the second block, which is this green one, which is the block that develops the standards, develops the codes. This is the CEN that coordinates this part. CEN is the European Standardization Body. And afterwards, they have together with them all the national standardization bodies, as you see here in the column. They communicate this legislation, this standardization communicates with the legislation. There is a channel of communication, and at the top you see these arrows. There is a communication, very official. The Commission asks for standards, the CEN develops them and comes back saying this if it corresponds to the requirements. To complete the puzzle, there is a third block, which is the European Technical Approvals, which is the European Organization for Technical Approvals that can approve kits, materials, some parts of structural elements that are not designed, cannot be designed because they are innovative, etc., with Eurocodes, but they can be approved. And there are several laboratories in Europe distributed in the European space to do the approval of these products, of these kits, etc. Who benefits from this? The European industry. This is clear. There is the benefit of this system here. Development of and implementation of the Eurocodes, work and timeline. I go fast here. You see, you have here the different phases of development of the Eurocodes. They were developed until 2007, and in 2007 the first generation was there, was prepared, and afterwards there was the implementation from 2007 to 2010. Okay, there was a need to do maintenance and modernization and start thinking about the second generation. You see, we at that time we were already thinking about the second generation. I give you an idea of the time that we need to do this. This too much time, it's a lot of time, but it was like this the process in Lisbon, in Europe, and you see, 20 years for each phase for development of the code. Yeah, information about the Eurocodes, the history and the evolution, etc., can be found in these platforms. Let us go to the duties of this implementation. This could be useful also for you, for the model code. After its development, we have to transfer it to the national codes. There was a period of 2 years for the countries to set down their national determined parameters. There need to publish the national standard transposing the European part and national next, clearly. There was the need to adapt the national provisions in order to allow the application of the Eurocode in their territory, and afterwards there is the need to withdraw all conflicting national standards. You see there, March 2010 for the first generation was this date, and afterwards you need to promote the codes and training community in the application of the codes. There was the Joint Research Center of the European Commission has been mandated to help in this operation of develop and collect manuals, design aids, support national implementation, international promotion, development, coordination of research for the second generation. We have started there, and we have at that time created this website for the Eurocodes, Eurocodes Building the Future, which is still there, perhaps with another design, but it's still there. It was the main platform for exchanging material on the promotion and training of the Eurocodes. To do this training and capacity building, there are several actors: the Eurocode writers in the left, the European Commission, the national trainers, the training on Eurocodes at national level. There are different phases. We have to develop material for this and work the examples in the left guidance, how to apply the standards and to adapt the national legislation, and even to have best practice in terms of derivation of, for example, the seismic maps or the wind maps in Europe, to help the countries to come out with a more uniform way of defining this loading. But you need also to go further and to start creating or preparing the second generation, and there you have glass structures. We are at that time already thinking about that, and also part concerned with the robustness. Let me come to the second generation of the Eurocodes. We are still at work, but we have almost finished this second generation, and it has started already in 2010, I would say, because we were there and someone asked us to go further in the updating at that moment to prepare for the updating. There was a mandate for the Commission in 2010. The work started in 2015, and there were more than 400 experts, European experts and even external, not European, involved in this work, and the work is there. You see, we are in 2026, and the second generation is already there, is published in Brussels centrally, and now the countries will have 2 years till 2028 for the application of the countries. Date of withdrawal. They have to withdraw the old version of the Eurocodes in 2028 and adopt the new version. What has been done in general, it has been consider robustness, assessment of existing structures, climate change, consider ease of use. You know, when you start a standard, sometimes you have to we have the wish to include everything, and it's not the best way for design. We have also considered new material codes for glass, fiber reinforced polymers, FRP, and membrane structures, and at the end of the day, you have to uptake the new knowledge and technological developments. This is what is concerned the second generation. Let me come down more specifically to the Eurocode 8. And it is here what has been done for the Eurocode 8 for the second generation. But you see here very rapidly restructuring of the parts, redefinition of the seismic action, redefinition of elastic response spectrum, redefinition of the activity classes and corresponding design, and also the key factor, which is the strength reduction factor. There are some important modifications there. The restructure gave rise to this schematic representation where you have general rules, you have the rules for the new structures and the rules, the part 3, for assessment of existing structures and redesign. The new content of the Eurocode 8, seismic design, which was not in the version 1, was the four limit states. This was considered the new version, the new generation. The development of displacement-based design. This was there, but very, very, very rough, I would say. European seismic hazard map is included as an informative annex. Flat slab buildings, they were not in the first generation. No structural elements, modeling of infield panels, for example, structures with energy dissipation systems, etc., etc. Let me come to the seismic action, because here there was a modification. I mean, nowadays the spectrum is defined with the two anchored points. One is the spectral value at the maximum amplification, S alpha, and the other is the S beta, which is the spectral amplification at 1 second. 1 second is another anchored point because it does the transition between flexible and structures and more rigid structures. This is the representation in a logarithm scale, but here you see with these 3 data points, we can define the response spectra with afterwards the corner periods TA, TB, TC, which TD, which come out as a national determined parameter. You see, here the countries can adapt this code to the region, touching even the corner periods in the response spectrum. Here you have the maps of the S alpha values for a period, the return period of 475 years, which corresponds to 10% exceedance probability in 50 years. The normal life considered for in Europe, and this was obtained within a project, the SERA project, financed by the European Commission. You see here, the Commission finances a project which is relevant for the Eurocodes. and here you have the outcome S alpha and also S beta for all Europe. There is another point, which is the consideration of seismic action classes. In the second generation, we take into account not only the seismic intensity, but also the consequence classes, the type of structure that we are designing. And with that, we define classes of structures, which you see, they are a little bit dynamic in the terms. They change with the importance class of, we consider already in the seismic action the importance of the structure when defining these seismic classes. And this helps a little bit in considering, yes, concentrate your efforts in where you should concentrate. If the structure is located in a seismic action, high seismic action class, it should be important, the structure, and also the seismic intensity is important. Take attention to these structures, and if you are in a zone the seismic action is very low, the structure is not important, don't touch importance, and perhaps you don't need to have a seismic design of this structure. Important thing is ductility class, they were changed, but one thing that it is important to underline here is that we have reduced the strength reduction factors, the Q factors. Why? Because of this damage limitation. We have seen in the earthquakes in the past, Northridge, Kobe, etc., that the new buildings, most of them, they stayed there, they didn't collapse, but they were completely, they had to be demolished. The intensity of the non-linear deformation is too much, and they have to be demolished. This has consequences, economical, social, etc. The tendency here is to reduce the Q factor, to explore less ductility. To have stronger structures in order to explore less ductility. Here you have the four limit states, the verifications, the performance-based design. For performance-based design, operational limit state, damage limitation. Here you have the famous damage limitation, the significant damage, and this is the point that is the ultimate limit state for new structures. And you have also the non-collapse, which serves essentially for existing structures. For existing structures, you should go here and go to non-collapse limit state. The matrix is here, the performance-based design objectives matrix, and you see here how it is a relation between the performance level, the seismic intensity level, and the performance level for the Eurocodes presently. The second generation is there, and what you have seen is that we have seen an engagement even of the European Association for Earthquake Engineering, in this case for Eurocode 8. They have created webinars on the new Eurocode 8, the second generation. You see here, this is open information you can access, and there are everything about the second generation that you can see in the website here. Research and innovation, and I'm in the last part of my presentation to show you how this development of the Eurocodes gave rise to lots of work, lots of research in Europe, and they have put the research community together. This is very important because we have creating an objective. Everybody is looking at the European standard and referring to it. This is very important, creates some momentum even in the research community and in the technical community, clearly. This is our laboratory in Italy. The laboratory of the European Commission Joint Research Center has already lots of work done. But you see here some examples. This was the first structure designed to the Eurocodes in the years 1994, 95. Existing structures, reinforcement retrofit using shear walls, flat slab buildings. Today you have it in the second generation, but the work started there a few years ago at our lab. I have here also some work that we are performing on sustainability of building renovation, sustainability renovation in Europe, which considers integrating the earthquake and energy renovation at the same time. And we are also looking at the modular, innovative solutions like modular construction and the new sustainable materials for construction. Here you have the case of energy and seismic retrofitting, shotcrete with textile reinforced mortar for the seismic reinforcement, and afterwards application of the insulation material. And with this we address the two problems: seismic performance and the energy performance of the buildings. This is very popular today in Europe because of the energy crisis and so on. And here you have another case of we replaced the fill walls because they were degraded or whatever, and we replaced them with new walls. In this case, it's cross-laminated timber walls with the dissipation characteristics or not, but also even with the energy performance characteristics, not only to reinforce for earthquakes, but to reinforce also for energy performance testing. Here inside the laboratory, we have the three colleagues, myself in the first row, and after in the second row there is, in the second line, there is already Professor Gustavo Ayala from UNAM, Mexico. And he is a very good colleague, very good friend. He came to us several times. Last time was 1 year ago when we took this picture. He's responsible for me being here today because he has suggested my name to Miguel Cruz and afterwards to the organization to invite me. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Gustavo. Thank you, Miguel. Thank you to the organization. And then you have there Jos Tionis, our young boy, our colleague, who is now the responsible for the coordinator, is the deputy head of unit, is the coordinator of all this activity. You have the map here of our place in Italy, north of Italy, European Commission Joint Research Center, which is very close, it's very central. You can reach France, Germany, Italy in a few hours. There is also very close the University of Pavia and the EU Center, which was born a little bit in this wave of the European research area, as we see. Let me summarize in one slide what I have said before. Eurocodes are really a successful story, but to get to this successful story, there were the main factors, ingredients, as it is said here. The first one is the clear political vision. The second one is the European ecosystem for standardization and legislation talking together. The third one is the flexibility and up-to-date attractiveness of the Eurocodes. I mean, this possibility of the countries define their national determined parameters, it's very important, gives flexibility that the code needs and gives also attractiveness to the Eurocodes. They can be used by the countries in the European Union, but also the other countries, for example, the EU neighborhood countries like Asia, Africa, etc. But there are two other factors very important. The first one is the European research area. It's to strengthening and creation and strengthening of this European research area. There is no doubt this is essentially in this area of construction buildings is due to the development and the continuous updating of the Eurocodes in Europe. This is very important, and I suppose this can happen also to you. You can create a sort of Latin America, Caribbean research area. We are thinking loud, but this could be. But pay attention because you need always an organization to control all these things, to animate, to talk to each other, to put everything together. And the Europeans, they have been lucky because they have the JRC that this job of putting everybody together and collaborating. Yeah, I would like to thank my colleagues for the material that they provided to me. Also, the colleagues from the SAN TC250, who is responsible for the Bish, the chairman of the Eurocode 8 seismic design, the researchers in different partner institutions, and also the financing of the Commission in all these projects. Yes, thank you very much for your attention. It was a great pleasure to be here with you, and I hope this will inspire presentation and the material that I leave here with you. And again, good luck and congratulations for your initiative. I'm sure that it will be a great success. Thank you. Bye.